All right, here we go. Against Alo Oriente, and he's gonna party like it's 1999 because that's his rating. Okay, and he did make a move. That's encouraging. We'll do a little Sicilian. Maybe I should play some different openings on these games for the YouTube channel, because I just play the same openings all the time, but I don't know other openings. I'm not sure if we've had like a Rossalimo on one of these videos, so that'll be good. It's like the Nejmedinov Rossalimo something. I get like there's some other name along with Rossalimo. I can never remember it. I just call it a Rossalimo, and that should be good enough. So I have sort of a system that I like to play against this. Although it doesn't really work if the guy doesn't take the knight, which they usually do. So I'm kind of out of theory here. I mean, I know that knight d4 is a common idea just to counterattack the bishop. If I'm going to do that, maybe now is an okay time because the bishop doesn't have f1. That would be sort of a nice square. Knight f6 is a move that I would like to play, but when e5 happens, I'm not sure I'm gonna like that. There is knight g4. Knight f6 might be fine. I guess he would probably like knight f6, e5, knight g4. Maybe then he would chop here. And then he can defend the pawn on e5, and my knight's kind of weird here. So I don't think knight f6 is right. Maybe I am just playing knight d4, and if he takes, my argument is that I have a nice center. I guess that's my argument. And I'm going to play like a6, b5. It feels a little wrong to move the knight twice in the opening, but, you know, maybe. Maybe I should consider e5. Like, that's what that's sort of the system that I like to play. And put the knight on e7, and I have good control of the center. But it makes less sense when he hasn't done this, because my d-pawn's sort of weird. I guess I will do this. It seems sort of okay. I could also play a6, maybe. And just see what he's gonna do. I don't hate a6. I guess let's do that. Let's just put him to the test. And then if he takes, I like taking with the d-pawn. Maybe it's a little different here. Like if he plays e5, I'm not super happy. But that might be overextending a little bit. I'm just gonna stick with my guns here. Also, now his knight doesn't have d5, which is kind of nice. Okay, so this is sort of transposing to this system that I like, that I picked up from one of Daniel Naroditsky's speedrun games. Okay, the pawn is hit. I think I can just defend. The queenside pawn structure looks a little funny, but I don't know how he's going to take advantage of that. My knight's going to go here, and basically, I like to play on the d file and break with c4 at some point. I've had good results online in this system. Okay, so he's gonna go here. I think I don't hate that. Like knight e7, bishop h6, castles, takes. I don't think there's a big problem there. His bishop, dark square bishop, is maybe a little better than mine anyway. Although that does get rid of the bishop pair. But I can't really do much about it. I think I said knight f6, but I meant knight e7. I'm not sure. Oh, I guess the problem is this pawn hangs. So there is some issue there, maybe. I'm a little bit like a tempo down off of where I would normally be. Because I've played like a6. Like I've had basically this position, but with the knight on e7 and the pawn still on a7. So hopefully that's not a big concern. I'm thinking about queen c7 just to add extra support here. You can't play bishop h6 as long as my knight's here. So if I play queen c7, I'm neglecting development, sort of. So I just want to be sure that there's not any big attacking idea that could, scare me. Like knight g5 would be the sort of move that looks really aggressive, but I don't see what it accomplishes. Because I don't see another piece joining the fight for white over there. It just feels a little wrong. But what else am I doing? Like, if knight e7 is not good because of the pressure here, then I need to defend it. So I think I'm going to do it, and it feels like one of those moves that I might end up regretting. Although now my opponent left the game. So he has a minute to return. Okay, he came back good. I don't like claiming victory or a draw. I would not claim a victory when the position's equal. I would only claim a draw. Okay, that's not a super concerning move. I guess the idea is this bishop doesn't have a great square, but e6 is sort of fine. I think I'm fine to play this now. I could even play knight f6 since e5 is defended. That might be a reasonable idea, because I could try to go knight h5 and get the knight into f4. If I played knight f6, maybe g4 is semi-annoying for him, but I don't really think so. I think I'm fine to do this. Think so. I was just gonna castle here. I didn't see much danger. He's playing quite quickly, but I don't think I really have any big problems. Can probably pre-move that. He played too quickly for me to even pre-move it. Yeah, and I think my position's just fine. Okay, so he's putting pressure on e5. That's fair. I guess rook e8 defends. h6 was a move I was thinking about playing anyway, so I might get to play it for free now, but yeah, I need to defend that pawn. Knight d7 doesn't make much sense because it blocks in the bishop. So I think rook e8 makes a lot of sense. Yeah, and he just moves instantly every move. Now he is guarding this, so like if I tried to put my knight on f4, it's not as good as it was. Maybe it just gets traded off. But I think just h6, deflect the queen away from the pawn, bishop e6, get the rook over. I think my position's sort of fine. Maybe he goes to g3. Maybe. There's also an interesting idea to play c4. Sort of like that, because his last move undefended here. So c4 would try to undermine the white pawn chain. It's the kind of move that is maybe a little risky to play while I'm so undeveloped. But, for example, if he takes and I get here, then my bishop can maybe come to f5, maybe, which is, more appealing. If he doesn't take, I guess, if I take and give him a backward pawn here, I'm pretty happy. he could take with a rook, but then maybe later I play like c5 and get the bishop going on the long diagonal. I think I've sort of talked myself into it. Always a nice idea to consider, you know, when you have sort of an extra pawn, like a doubled pawn, to trade it off for a healthy one. Okay, he doesn't care. He could check me once, it's true. Okay, this one doesn't work. Okay, but so what? Like, I was having trouble figuring out what to do with this bishop anyway. Like, knight f5 check, maybe I just take it. And then I take here. He has some weird structure. I think that that's fine. I should also reevaluate h6. I mean, h6 does stop knight h5 or knight f5. Because after knight f5 I would take, and then he doesn't have time to recapture because his queen's hanging. And what I didn't like about h6 before was queen g3. Now that's slightly illegal. So after h6, the queen has to come back probably to one of these squares, because if he goes here, g5... Oh, I guess he could sack, but looking a little hairy, right? I think I like h6. And just back him up. Okay, I'm way down on the clock because my opponent's been playing instantly every move. But I think my position's becoming pretty reasonable. Like, at some point I'm going to exchange here. He's going to have one weakness or another. He's either going to have a weak backward d-pawn, or he's going to recapture with a piece and have a weak e-pawn that I can target with my bishop. And I think these knights are just not really cutting it. So yeah, let's go ahead and take, now that the knight's defending this. Okay, so he chooses the backward pawn. I think I really want to play c5 and just clamp here. And again, get this for the bishop. The rook can come over. That looks really nice. Perhaps black or white should play b4. Yeah, he's planning to play b4. I could play a5 to stop him. I think I will do that. He'll play a3, but then maybe I play a4. So he has to kind of work. He could also play d4. That's true. But that doesn't really work. Like a5, d4, takes, and then I can take on e4. I think that's sort of fine. b4 looks scarier to me, so I'm going to stop that. An extra possibility for the bishop. Even though I'm down 10 minutes on the clock, I still have lots of time on the clock, so. Okay, I mean, d4 is a reasonable move, so maybe bishop e6, or a6 to pin it. And yeah, I mean, I think this is just looking pretty good at this point. Let's put some pressure on that pawn. That's going to be the focal point now. And just put everything on the d file and hammer away, I think. Yeah, he wants b4. But I think I'm just hitting faster at this point. Like, I just bring my rook over, I'm already threatening. Rook takes pawn. I could play a4. Could. Well, let's do this first. I suppose. Make him defend. Could play a4 now. Could try to double up somewhere. Maybe rook e6, and then I could even try to come... but I'm undefending that, so that may not quite work. I guess I can play a4 and just keep him from doing what he wants to do. And if queen here, I can play like bishop b5 and defend. It looks a little strange. Like, I'm worried the bishop is loose, but... I'm trying to pick up the pace a little bit. I mean, I only have 4 minutes, but... It's always stressful when they play like this. Like, they shouldn't do it, but it still is stressful. Because you feel like you have to just move. Maybe rook d6 next. Get the queen in behind. Start putting more pressure. At least if the queen goes to c2, then this pawn is secure for the moment. Right now there's, you know, tension here. So these pieces are a little bit tied down. But maybe we can resolve that. Yeah. Man, this is the first time he's thought all game. I guess that's a good sign. He's run out of like one move ideas. Hopefully. Okay, now his new idea is to do this. Pretty reasonable idea, but I'll just take, right? And then... I mean, I'll win a pawn. So I think rook d6 and prepare queen d7. Oh wait, that doesn't work because then this is going on. True. That's true. True stuff. Okay, I guess we'll just reroute a little bit. The bishop probably... Well... The knight could be doing more. Maybe now I go for this. Ah, the knight feels really out of play over there. But if I can get the knight to f4, that would be quite nice, wouldn't it? Because then I'm ready to take here. Okay, let's just threaten that. Maybe he'll play g3, but at least I'm inspiring him to weaken his king position a little bit. Like, then there's some weak squares here. Maybe I can try to switch up and attack over there. Also from f4, my knight defends this outpost that he's angling for. Right. So I think he shouldn't have done that, but what do I know? Also, this is a slight threat. Very minor, not really worth worrying about if I was him. Yeah, he seemed to not notice that. Because that looks like a game ender right there. Like, in my opinion. Okay, so that was fun. He spent no time on the game, and then when he started taking time, he lost immediately. So I enjoyed that. Let's analyze. Yeah, basically the game was pretty much, it was a fine game. Like, he didn't really make any mistakes. Like, the graph indicates that white was better for most of the opening and early middle game. And then I kind of equalized. Then maybe black was a hair better, and then he started flailing a bit. So we'll start from the beginning. Yeah, so I knew the position more or less until around here. Like, I'm used to them taking, and then that sort of changes, you know, the ideas a bit. But so the master database says that e5 is the most common move. I was thinking about that, but I was reluctant because I thought my d pawn was a little weird. I'm used to positions where this capture is in. I like taking with the d pawn, and then e5. There's not really much downside. You get sort of like a bind over d4, and I just enjoy playing those positions. But since that didn't happen, I was a little more reluctant to play e5. So I don't know if I can really learn much just looking at this, but you know, if I were asking a strong player, I'd be like, well, wait, am I not worried about d5 being a weakness? Am I not worried about this pawn doing nothing? But I don't have a strong player nearby, I don't think, so I guess I can't do that. Maybe you guys in the comments can, you know, tell me. So anyway, a6, the computer is not a big fan of. It has been played before, and in every instance, white took the knight, which does make sense. That sort of saves time, and there's not many appetizing squares for the bishop. You can't go to a4 because your bishop gets trapped. So taking makes sense. Taking with the d-pawn. So this position's occurred 12 times in the master database. White won 9 of those games and drew 2. So that's not a ringing endorsement for this opening line, but you know, I'm not a master, so it doesn't matter. More importantly, my opponents aren't masters, so it doesn't really matter what the masters say. Okay, e5 seems good. Let's bring in the computer at this point. We're pretty much out of the master database. It wants to go knight a4, and actually, yeah, someone played something like that against me once. I can't remember if it was online or OTB. I'm drawing a blank. But in that, I had the same pawn structure, and they played knight a4, but my queen was already here. So, like, playing b6 wasn't an option because they would just take and fork. I can't remember if that was an OTB game or an online game now, but oh well. Yeah. So the computer still really likes white. I mean, optically, it does look quite nice for white. White's pieces are out. Black's pieces aren't. Black's not even particularly close to castling. All black really has is a better center, and I guess the question is, can he keep it, or is white going to start poking and prodding, which is again what the computer wants to do with knight a4. which I don't super get. Now it's saying h3, which he did end up playing in the game. He played queen d2 first. It wants to play bishop g4, which I saw it was legal at some point. I can't remember if it was here or if it was later. But I decided to defend here. That's an okay move too. That's the third choice of the computer. Still giving white about a pawn advantage, so you know, not the best opening, but h3 is computer approved. Not many good squares for this bishop. It still wants h6 all the time. I played knight f6. It was suggesting maybe knight e7, but both are good. Basically, it floated around +1 for white here for a while, and then I was able to equalize. We're actually still in one master game, and in that game, white played knight h2, which is a move that I didn't consider. It still is liking this knight a4. I really don't get what the big idea is. I don't really understand. But okay, whatever. Castling was good. Yeah. And then it doesn't like this move. Okay. That sort of makes sense because, again, a lot of whites play this game was just like making threats, but you know, making a threat for the sake of making a threat at a certain point is not good chess. Like if the threat can be conveniently stopped, then it's probably not it's not a good move unless there's like a secondary benefit. You know, it's like the principle of two weaknesses. So queen g5 threatens this pawn, but my rook wasn't really good here anyway. Like my rook probably wanted to be on e8, and then I'm just getting h6 later, which again I was already in many instances I was thinking about playing h6 to try to keep the knight out of here, but so by just playing one move threats, white actually sort of forced me to improve my position. C4 was a great move. C4 was the equalizing move here. It says black's fine with other moves, but C4, it's now giving... Okay, now it's back to zeros after C4. For a second, it was giving 0.1 for white, but who cares? So C4 was great. He continued to marshal in the forces. And it approves of H6 here. I guess I should mention, I can't remember if I said it during the game or not. I did say it during the game. I was thinking about, in this position, playing H6. Now I'm trying to remember why I wanted to play H6 so badly. But I thought maybe Queen G3 would happen so that he's still keeping pressure here. So once this happened, then I eventually recognized, like, oh, now the queen can't go to G3, so I like H6 even more. Now it's giving a slight edge to black, but it didn't last long. It wants A5 here. I think the purpose of A5 is to stop B4 for the moment. Like, I think we want to play C5, but we don't want B4 to hit. Like, I think that, yeah, B4 should be played here. I mean, that move just makes so much sense. Because this bind with this backward pawn, white shouldn't really be okay with that. So trading off the B pawn is a really good idea. And if black has to take, then, you know, white's going to gain a tempo and improve the rook later. So I think that's why the computer wants A5 first. I do see it in the line. It is eventually playing C5 in about 4 moves. A5 was good here. And then from here on, it was only equal or white was a hair better. Bishop A6 was a good move. Rook AD8 is good. It's suggesting Queen D6, which I guess... Queen D6 makes sense because it's getting out of the pin, but it's also lending support to B4 so that break isn't going to be as good. I was hesitant to put the queen on the D file because I thought, you know, when I start trying to take this D pawn, I don't want my queen in front. I want the rook. I want a rook in front, and then my queen, you know, bat and clean up. But I think maybe we're just never actually going to win the pawn here. Okay, now it's suggesting Queen E7, which is a different angle, and now it has landed on my move. But It's saying about equal for all of them. Maybe a slight edge for black. Yeah, I don't think I ever really thought about queen e7, but that makes a lot of sense. A4 is what I played. Also one of the top moves. And I think this is the point in the game where he sort of just ran out of ideas. Like, he made threats. You know, he tried to get his pieces into good squares. But then here it's like I sort of just defended everything that he was doing, and it, I guess, became difficult for him to find the next idea. Sometimes you can just win games like that. Like, you don't really have to do anything spectacular. You just don't let them do what they want to do, and then eventually they run out of steam, and then you win. So that was basically the story of this game. Now I will say, like, knight f1, this is a good idea, to try to get the knight to this square. That's a nice looking square. But I think you should be extra skeptical of these long maneuvers. And, you know, I mean, I'm not saying it's a bad move. Like, I don't know what to suggest. Like, the computer's saying move the b pawn. That wouldn't really be on my radar too much. But these retreating moves can be really risky, because if your opponent starts doing something, you know, imminently, and your piece is still on the first rank, that might be a problem. So knight h5 was a good move. It prefers queen d6. Again, I didn't want the queen leading the charge here. But knight h5 is also very good. I thought he should play g3, because I thought knight f4 was too annoying. That's putting a lot of pressure here. And this is sort of a pattern that emerges often, where if the knight can get to f4 before g3 is in, then g3 is hard to play because h3 is hanging. So he should have taken a moment to prevent me from doing that. Actually, that's the only move that keeps the game equal. So after g3, it gives minus 0.6 for black. So, you know, small edge for black. Every other move, it's giving minus 2. So you really can't allow knight f4. Luckily for me, he did. And now in this position, it's even saying minus 3.5. Because, I mean, this threat is pretty big. I didn't even see that threat until my knight was already on f4. And in analysis just now, I didn't even think about, like, oh yeah, the whole reason I won was because I got knight e2. That wasn't on my mind at all, and clearly it wasn't on his mind either. But, you know, my knight's just great here, putting pressure on these pawns, so it's difficult for him to kick my knight out. I'm threatening knight e2. I'm putting more pressure on this pawn. If his knight comes here, I'm ready to trade if for some reason there's nothing better to do. Yeah, and then he just allowed the fork, and yeah, that's the game. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give me a like and subscribe and all that good stuff, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye.